And welcome back to part 3 of my TileEntities tutorial, which is part 6 of my advanced modding tutorial series. The last episode we showed how to create a TileEntity, what a TileEntity was, how to make a TileEntity be camouflaged, and how to create a mine. Today we're going to show you how to use IInventory and ISidedInventory to interact, to be able to allow your block to interact with hoppers and that kind. So let's dive straight into that. So we've got a camel mine and it works perfectly. Though we're going to take it to the next step, and for the next step I want to work towards an inventory so you can attach like a hopper. You can attach like a hopper to the mine. And when you insert an item, it will be put in the camo mine as a camouflage. Now to do that, we should make the camouflage itself not free. Because now if we right click it, it doesn't actually use the item. So we should change it. You'll see that it will still have 52 items. We'll have to change it that it will actually use an item, because hoppers are going to actually use an item as well, so, or put in an item. So to do that we can do it like in here. If we get player item equals that. If player item is null, player item stack size, we can decrease the stack size by 1 when we place it in, and we can also let's see. Okay, I've done this. We get a camo stack, which is basically the player item, the item the player is currently carrying, but with an item stack, with a stack size of 1. And we do that by doing player item.splitStack. And you'll see it will remove the amount specified by the argument, and it will return a new stack with the size of the argument. So if the player item had 10 items, 10 stack size of 10, it will take 1 off and it will return a stack with count 1. So the player will have 9 left. And then we set the camouflage to that. But we also should make sure that when there is a camo already there, we should take it off. So we can do that in here. We can do ft get camouflage. We did add that. Is not null. And if it is null, then we can put in a new camouflage. So we can item stack camo stack equals, and we need to set it to null, and so we can do set camouflage null, and we should drop that item. We can't make it disappear. So to do that we can access the world to spawn in a new item entity, and we can do that by doing entity item item entity so you give the world the X, Y, Z and the stack you want to put in, and that's just a constructor for the special entity item. It's one of the constructors. So an entity item, likewise with a player entity, every entity has its own instance, and that's the same with the entity item. We've given it an XYZ, but the current XYZ is a corner of a block, so it will act like if we had put a camo right there, a camo mine, it would spawn it right inside the ground. So what we could do is actually make it site dependent. That would be the nicest solution. Debating if that's too hard to do for now. Well, let's just see how this goes. So another thing to note is that the world needs to know a new item gets spawned, so we need to spawn it in the world. So we can do world spawn entity, and we can give the item entity. So that will notify to the world, oh, you have to add this entity into the world, and that will do it. And that should be about it, I think. Let's see. If we right click, there we go, it subtracts 1, and if we right click again, it will put it back in. We need to be careful that we don't die. It does work, doesn't it? Nice. So the problem I described. Yeah, it does work. I think we should leave it for now, because that's fine. So next step is making it work with a hopper, because currently it won't know that it can put in an item. So let's fix that. Oh, also as a side note, before we move on to doing an inventory, note that when we decrease the stack size by 1 of the player item, when that stack size is 0, we should delete that item. Fortunately, that's done internally by what's returned for on block activated. So if we look at this, I think we can see it. There you go, you'll see it right here. But that's handled internally for this method. But if you remove one item in other methods, you might need to set the player stack yourself. So you'll see that it will work here. But if it doesn't work, you will right click and it will look as if it didn't delete the item stack. But then if you try to stack items, it will not count towards the stack, so it will give some funky outcome, but just keep that in mind for other methods. So let's move on to the inventory, like I said. Before we move on to making a inventory, I think I want to make some more adjustments to the current camo mine. That way I can show you how to use an inventory in its full potential. So what I want to do is basically create a camouflage for every possible side of the block. So we have a camouflage for every of the 6 sides. So to do that, I think it's smart to make this an array, and maybe do that, and then make it an array. And we can make it an array of 6. Now it's going to yell at us a lot. So let's fix that in side. Oh, whoops. There you go. Get camouflage inside. And this also is interesting, but we can simply do for item stack stack in camo stacks and do stack. We can just write 6 item stacks, that's what it comes down to. And then we have to do that with an indexer, so we do length, and do that, and camouflage I equals that. So replacing it back. Okay. And we, by the way, can delete this debug info we added. We can... Our MT is, well, not working. And this will need a little bit of adjustment, because currently we have this key, and you could do something with an indexer and do +I or something with the key. I'd like to use a MT tag list, and that's made for that. So let's do the right part first. We can do MT tag list, camo stack tag is not a new MT tag list, and we can do that for loop again. Item stack camo stacks, and it's generally this. But we can do camo stack tag append stack. So a MT tag list basically is can be compared to a Java list. So we create a new list here, and it's just a list for MT tags or any MBT base basically, but generally you'll use it for MBT tag compounds. So when the stack is not null of a certain thing, we can do this, rewrite it, and when we append the tag to the stack. Tag. So this is basically a list.add in Java. Also, what we need to do is give it an index, because if we read it, we don't know which item stacks we get. So we have to do this. And we could do item stack equals camo stacks I. There we go. And now we can also include with that tag a index. So when we read it, we can get which side this camo belongs to. Set byte we can do. That's the smallest amount we can use here, because we only have 6 sides, so that will fit in a byte, and that's because it's safe to the world. It's nice to be efficient here. We can set a byte and call it index and write I to that. Probably have to cast that to a byte. There we go. And last thing we need to do is put that tag list in this the main tag over here. So let's call it camo stack tag. There we go. Now we need to read that list, and we can do that by doing MT tag list, and I'd like to name it the same as when we read it, or wrote it actually. Get tag list, and we called it camo stacks over here. And we have to give it a number, and that's number 10. Basically, this number will give you different types of lists. That's the basic gist, but if you look at any vanilla implementation, it will always be 10, as far as I know. And that's what you just need to do as well. Just put in 10 and it will work. Other numbers won't work. So we can do... Oh, by the way, when stack is null, it won't be added to the list. So what we really need to do is clean up the camo stacks array when we before we work with it. So we can do camo stacks new item stack 6. We can do that. Or maybe a neater way could be array utils. Fill. Ooh. Arrays. There we go, fill. Object, and we can do camo stacks null. That will just fill all the let's keep it simple and do this. But the other option would have worked as well. So if we cleaned it first, so every element contains null of the array, and then we loop through all keys we had, so we can do for int I equals null, I equals less than the list size, so we can do camo stack tag tag count, it's called. So that's basically equivalent to a list dot size. So we can do empty tag compound, and we called it just T. Camo stack tag get compound tag at I. So that's basically the same as list dot get. Index equals T dot get byte index. So we know which index of the camo stack we are going to load. And we can do that. We can do if the index is more than 0 or equal to 0 and the index is less than the camo stack's length. So it won't cause a index out of bounds exception. It's within the bounds of the camo stacks array, which always should be the case, but you never can be sure enough. We can do camo stacks equals, or index really, and did we call it? Oh, we didn't put it in a separate tag, but it shouldn't really matter that much. We can write it from here. So that basically means that this index key will be written at the same level as the ID and the count and the damage. So as long and the tag. So as long as you don't choose a key that's the same as this one, you'll be fine. Which should be good. And we can get rid of this. So that should work in terms of saving and reading. Now what we need to do is assign a different camouflage for a different side when you right click it. So we've got a side here we can use when you right click a block. The side that's right clicked will be given. So we can set the side, the camouflage side, to the side you're right clicking, or there. So we do side. We can basically make everything side dependent. Side. Side. And the camouflaging itself, we can do side. And that should basically be it, I think. So let's see what happens. And there we go. If we do this, it works fine. Different camouflages for different sides. Now you right click the block to get rid of the camouflage. Cool. Now let's move on to doing a inventory. So when looking at how to do a inventory, the best thing you can do is look at an existing inventory. I've could have looked at how the chest works. However, that contains some extra logic to do a double chest. So apart from that, the simplest inventory to look at is a dispenser. There might be others, but I'd like to look at this dispenser. And you'll see it has item stacks as well, like we have. But most notably, it implements IInventory, which is implemented by any block or tile entity that is an inventory that can be accessed by tubes or by hoppers or by whatever. But it has a big list of methods. So you see a get list of the inventory, get size inventory. That will return the amount of slots. So in our case that would be 6. The get stack and slot, pretty easy. It will give the slot at once, and you should return the item stack, the stack it contains in that slot. Degree stack size will, well, it all says it here. It remove the. It will give the slot any amount of items it wants to be decreasing, and you should return. Let's see, what should you return? It's basically the same as item stack dot split stack, I think. Yeah, but it has some checks in here as well. When to check if the item stack. So basically, if a slot contains 5 items and you want to decrease 6, it will be catched in here and it will only return 5. So you can go on, and it has a lot of methods. And I think the best thing you can do is basically copy this implementation and edit it to your own. So we'll do that, because most of it is pretty standard stuff. It isn't really anything you want to do differently from how it's done in here. We can copy it all and extract all we need. So first of all, let's implement that. And get size inventory you want to be, well, we could do camo stacks at length. That is pretty nice to do. And for every field we can do camo stacks. So this is the item stack array of the dispenser. We're going to replace it by our stacks. That solves a lot of errors already. And to be nice, we're going to rename it degree stack slot. Whoops, I should have used the refactor option in here. Slot. And it's much readable already. And slot. This is something that's not part of IInventory. We can see that from the blue arrow. It doesn't do that with this. Set inventory slot contents slot and a stack. So you've got a get stack, and this is basically the set stack. Another helper method for the dispenser. And this is when you want to allow a inventory to be renamed in a anvil. I don't think we want that for now, so we can do container dot camo mine. Or what I like to do is not blocks camo mine get a localized name. And we have to put a dot name behind it ourselves, because that's not being added, and that will be when you are going to use the name. So this string will be try to be translated into our right localization. And there's another helper method. And has custom inventory name when that's returning true. And this string won't be try to be localized, and when it returns false, it will be. So we always want to return false. And the dispenser did only return true, or only returned false when it didn't have a custom inventory name. Read and write from MAT we did ourselves already, but you can see it's pretty similar to how we did it, just using slot instead of index. But apart from that, get inventory stack limit will basically specify what the max stack size is in this inventory. Now we actually want to set it to 1 because we only want to put in single items, not entire stacks, to specify our camouflage. Is usable by player, is used in GUIs. So when you open up a GUI of a chest and you're in a minecart yourself, and or when you open up a chest and you fall down off a cliff, it will automatically close the inventory of the chest, because this method returns false in that case. You'll see when the distance is too large, it won't allow you to keep it open. So we can keep the same for this. And you also see it will check if the TileEntity in a certain area is not the same as this TileEntity. It would return false, and that's because when you open up the inventory of this block and it will explode or be removed, this GUI will close in that case. Open inventory and close inventory are just event methods. They'll be called when a player opens an inventory and when it closes an inventory. This is used in a chest to do the open inventory, open animation, the open chest animation, and the sound. And this is item valid for slot. This will specify if it a certain item that's being given here, if that's allowed in this inventory. So we could make it so it only will allow real blocks to be put in. We don't allow sticks or any item that can't be used as camouflage in here. So we can do stack, slot, and we can do return stack is not null, and stack get item instance of item block. Whoops. There you go. We can check if that works in a second. I think that's a right implementation. We can rename some more things. Player. And by the way, if you want to know how I'm doing this renaming of stuff, I'm doing this by doing refactor and rename, or the shortcut Alt-Shift-R. Okay, that should be basically it, though you'll notice that when we set our camouflage in here, it will do a mark block for update thing. It doesn't happen for when we do a set inventory slot contents. Now to make it more, we can copy it over, but a nicer thing to do would be is forward this set inventory stocks contents stack side, or the other way around. Swap. There we go. Because the side is equal to the slot. And we could do a get inventory slot contents in here. Shouldn't be really necessary, but it's nicer, I think. Get stack in slot. There you go. And I did put the mark block for update in my clipboard, so we can do this. So let's see if that will work. So as soon as your TileEntity implements IInventory, a hopper will check if an TileEntity implements IInventory, and it will use a few of those methods to interact with that. And when you want to create a block like similar to a hopper, which can insert items in inventories and stuff, transport items, you can do that as well. You can check for IInventory and do things according to that. So what we can do is, there we go. It put in 6 items. It won't allow for more, and it's filled up the slots. So that's basically working, isn't it? There we go. And we can get items out of this inventory by doing this. This should be working, I think. Oh, there we go. But I think it will require a... Oh, no. Let me debug what's happening here. Oh, I'm fairly certain it's because of the implementation of decreased stack size. So what we could do is instead change this one so it will forward a set inventory slot contents. We can do it in here. Slot and set it to 0, please. And we can do the same over here. There we go. I think that should fix the issue we were having. Maybe this one was bugged out still. So let's see, we've got that. Ah, there we go. That's better. So that's that fixed, and we've got a camo of mine which can be set to do this. So next step, what if we want to have the camo mine to only be able to be set with its camouflage to the side it's being put in? So when if we do this, dun, 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 dun. If we do this and we attach a hopper, it will only be able to set the camouflage of the side that the hopper is pointing into. And for that we need a different interface, because if we look at is it item value for slot or that, it doesn't give the side at which it's putting items in. And for that we can use ISidedInventory. And if you look at that, it extends IInventory. So it has all the methods we just discussed, plus a few extras. So you can see get accessible slots from site. Basically wants to have these slots that are accessible from a given site, and we can use that to do what we want. Can insert item. Basically it's the same as is item valid for slot, but now it will give a site as well. And can extract item is the same, but it will also give a site. Oh well, it isn't the same because a simple IInventory doesn't have a extract thing. Any item will be able to be extracted out of a IInventory inventory. So another benefit of ISidedInventory is that you can specify which items are allowed to go out of the inventory as well as inwards. So let's do a camo mine and implement the missing interfaces. So we can do return new int and let's call it side. If we do this, it will just be, it would return the slot that's connected to the site. But for example, if you've got like a furnace, you could return for site. The top side, you could return the top slot. For the sides, one of either side, the side sides, you could return the output slot or the fuel slot, I think it is, and the bottom side you could return the output slot. Or you could return multiple slots. And can insert item, we can just return is item valid for slot. That would work. And that reminds me, we haven't tested yet if our only blocks that can be camoed can be put in. Technique works, so we can always extract an item. And I'm just returning that, and I'm not doing the checks of the site in here, because every inventory that interfaces with an ISidedInventory always should check this first before it will check this one. So it would be redundant to also do something like if this site matches this slot, for example. That shouldn't be necessary. So let's check if this works. Oh, it only will do one side. Did it do the bottom side then? It did. So that's a bit weird. Did I do something wrong? First of all, let's check if that thing worked. So if we put in a random, like a, what's not a block? Iron ingot. If we put that in, it won't be put in the block. If we did a block, it did work. It doesn't work. But for some reason, it does do the bottom side. So let's see what's up with that. Oh, whoops, I derped big time. I meant to do this. That should work a little bit better. So let's take the camouflage off. There we go. So if we put in more items, we can put in more cobblestone. It shouldn't really do anything. Oh, now it will explode. So it will take one item and the rest won't work. That's more like it, isn't it? Haha. Not sure if you really would want to have this, but this is just to show you how ISidedInventory works. And this concludes this 3-part episode on TileEntities. I hope you learned a lot from it and enjoyed it. It was a very tough topic, but I hope I've done my best to I've done my best to explain it to you, and I hope you know how to work with TileEntities and IInventory and ISidedInventory now. And next episode we're going to build on top of that by doing containers and GUIs. Not sure if those will be split into separate episodes or not. We'll see about that then at that time. So for now, see you all next time. Hope you enjoyed it, and bye bye.